it's so obvious that these bans don't stop the poaching. There's an incredibly strong NGO anti-use lobby made up of literally hundreds of interest groups. They benefit from trade bans. This is how they raise money. They campaign to save the elephant by making sure that a ban remains on ivory trade, because their narrative is that no legal trade will reduce demand and stop poaching. This flies in the face of all the empirical evidence that we have. The MIKE program, which monitors elephant poaching, and the ETIS program, which monitors the ivory seizures, have shown huge increases beginning in about 2008 after a moratorium was put on allowing any proposals to sell legal ivory. The poaching spiked, ivory seizures spiked. That has continued until the present day. This spike has not dropped, has not decreased, even though since that time China's closed its legal market. That was the largest in the world. USA has closed its legal market. That was the second largest in the world. And yet the poaching has been maintained at a constant rate. It's so obvious that these bans don't stop the poaching. Many people ask, won't the legal ivory trade just create new demand, increase the demand, until it reaches a point where there isn't enough elephants, enough ivory to supply that demand? And that is really a key question. And it's my misunderstanding or lack of understanding of the answer that actually caused me not to think that legal ivory trade was a good idea until I understood the answer. You know, up till about 2008, I was actually on the side of keeping the ban in place. But now I've got an answer, and that is what you do is that you, for the worked ivory that goes out to the consumer, you only allow predominantly the most expensive type of ivory. You make it a luxury item. So these are the finely carved whole tusks, the finely carved figurines, and the expensive smaller pieces. You don't allow all the cheap trinkets and knickknacks and all that type of stuff. And if you do this, you're going to keep the volume down considerably. And in fact, you might have oversupply of ivory because not that many people are going to be able to afford these expensive pieces of ivory. And it also produces something that's probably, you could say, is a public good. It produces a lot of beautiful artistic pieces that will remain in the cultural heritage of the countries that produce it, primarily Japan and China. And there's quite a large number of people that like to collect these pieces. And I think that'll keep the requirement for a high supply down quite a bit. One of the biggest problems we have is maintaining the habitat for elephants and other wildlife. And that actually is a much bigger problem than poaching per se. Because with massive population growth in Africa, huge pressure is put on land. And wildlife is competing with alternative uses of that land. Agriculture, livestock. Currently, we're losing large amounts of land every year to increased numbers of people moving into wildlife habitat, cutting down forests, chopping down the bush, setting up little scrabbly farms, bringing in their cattle, sheep, and goats, displacing the wildlife. A lot of wildlife gets killed in this process because there's nowhere for them to go. The way to stop this process is by making the rural economies in marginal areas focused on wildlife as the economy. There are many animal species that can produce products that will bring in quite significant amounts of money. Elephant being certainly one of them. And if you can get the people in really at-risk areas to get rid of their sheep and goats and cattle and forget about farming, and just go into a wildlife economy, that is going to maintain those habitats. And some people might think this is a pipe dream, but it's been done and is being done in places in Zimbabwe and Namibia where the governments allow this type of consumptive use. And I would strongly recommend that this be expanded to other parts of Africa. If we want to save the habitats, we've got to allow the people, through legislation, through enabling types of cooperative behavior between government, private sector, the communities, to set up these wildlife economies. And I think there's huge potential there. Not just animals, plants as well, that can be much better utilized than they are at present. And if economic value can be given to both the plants and the wild animals, the people are going to keep it.